Well, I guess we'll fight, but I bet not. There were elections yesterday, and they sent a very clear message. You know what that is? You know what the message sent yesterday in many parts? No, in almost all parts of the country. That message was this: older, angry, white, rural voters are not the only way. In fact, the message went further than that. Older, angry, white, rural voters, you might just be diminished, of less importance. And that's important to the state of Texas. Follow me here. Question. Ready? When will the state of Texas be a part of the modern world? When will the state of Texas, I have to say modern world, what am I talking about? When will the state of Texas be a part of the modern portion of the United States? The message yesterday, the country has changed. Not is changing, it's changed. Got it? Republicans took an ass kicking over an issue yesterday. They took an ass kicking again over an issue today. And don't worry, I'm not going to leave the Democrats out of this at all. They took an ass kicking over legalizing marijuana yesterday. And I'm going to say took an ass kicking again. So angry rural white older voters only matter is an obvious mistake. I think the reminder is, politically speaking, that's an obvious mistake. You just learned a very serious lesson, you would think. You know what bothers me? I think you eating too many French fries is a bigger problem for me, the taxpayer, than legalized marijuana. In fact, I would say legalizing marijuana for me, the taxpayer, is a net gain for me, the taxpayer. You eating a lot of French fries and ending up on dialysis is not a net gain for me, the taxpayer. Notice how not once have I said, I'm going to eat the gummies. I just said as a taxpayer, the net gain for legalizing marijuana seems to be pretty obvious. It seems most of the modern portions of this country, not this part of the country, but most modern portions of this country have realized it's a net gain for the taxpayers. And what the objective should be of people in office, and I realize we've lost our way on this, and sorry if I'm ranting at you too much, but I really find that we've become mind-numbingly stupid about who we put in office and why. What we should do is worry about we, the taxpayers. What's best for the taxpayers? It's very obvious. What's best for the taxpayers is not making more laws, enforcing more laws about marijuana. What's best for the taxpayer, and the modern portions of this country have spoken, is the best thing for the taxpayer is to legalize. I'm not even talking about consuming. I'm just talking about taxpayers. And you know who learned that lesson yesterday, you would think? Don't worry, Texas, we're going to circle back to us in just a second. You know who you would think learned that lesson yesterday? Republicans and their ass kicking. You would think. You would think Democrats would have learned a lesson too. So, over-under game, let's do it. Let's do it. In light of the elections yesterday, which now we have, how many states is it? I know even Kentucky and Ohio legalized yesterday. Are we at 38 states? Well, it's a big number. You know, most modern places not named Texas. Over-under question, everyone. Over-under, legalized marijuana is passed in the state of Texas, like the other, 24 states or something like that. Over-under, I'll say 5 years. Answer, go ahead. There's no way you said under. No way. There's no way. No way. I don't. Over under 5 years doing what the rest of the modern portions of this country did by benefiting taxpayers. Okay? I'm not talking about consumers. I'm talking about taxpayers. I'm going to say 5 years is the over under, and I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the over. Disagree with me all you want. But I think I'm going to be right on this because they are not about to give up that older, angry, white rural voting bloc. And even though the message has been sent, I'm going to take 5 years over under. I'm going to take the over. So it was pretty resounding again and again and again. The other side of this, right? There's another side of this, politically speaking. Okay, first of all, there's the discussion about the taxpayers. Would you like to argue with me that it's in your best interest, taxpayers, that you continue to shake people down, arrest them, take their stuff and all that? You want to tell me, taxpayers, that there's a benefit to not legalizing? I would like you to just articulate that in a sentence or less. Please, go. So it seems obvious it doesn't benefit the taxpayers to not legalize. Okay? I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what you're going to put on your body. You know what I find pretty amazing about our discussions? First of all, the war on drugs, the battle on drugs, which has just been draconian. It's been a net loser. It has been nothing but pro-law enforcement in every single way, propping people up, although I would assume most law enforcement said what a waste of time this is. But the war on drugs historically has been a complete disaster. It has not benefited the taxpayers, and it's not about health at all. I find it so odd in this country. At certain times, we have this almost like this uprising of people worried about their health, yet we are eating ourselves to death. And I hear these lectures. Well, Jeff, people do this if they're going to smoke or do the gummies. It's not going to be healthy for them. And that's coming from somebody who's had their fourth bag of French fries this week and a big gulp and a BMI of like 55. Can we stop with the health arguments coming from people that aren't healthy? So the war on drugs is about health either. There's nothing about anybody in office that's about health. This should be a taxpayer issue. Period. The discussion should be about taxpayers. And there's not any one of you that can tell me in a sentence or less why this is a terrible idea for you, the taxpayer. But it will not pass in Texas. Texas will not legalize anytime soon. There is no way you hit the under at 5 years. The other side of this, in Texas alone, and I'll use Beto O'Rourke as the example. Hey, Democrats, if you would like to stop losing all the time, not some of the time, all the time, push for legalization. Start there. Every single message. Talk about legalizing weed. Does anyone say weed anymore? I've got to stop that. Legalizing marijuana. Start there. Start there. Every time. Classic example. I don't know that he would have won. But I tell you what, it seems pretty obvious you got a much better chance if you start talking Beto O'Rourke or anyone else that wants to win an office in the state of Texas. You need to talk about legalization. Would it be a single issue? It might be. If you want to win, it might be. It seems pretty clear the marketing message kind of works. It works in Kentucky and Ohio pretty obviously. So maybe you ought to try it. I'm amazed what little effort most people running for office with a D next to their name, how little they talk about legalization. Now, I realize you can't say, the governor couldn't make it happen. You know what he could do? He could talk about it a lot. That would be a much more effective marketing message than, losing all the time. You should push for legalization. Here's another marketing strategy why you should, which is pretty obvious based on yesterday's elections. If you would like, here's the reality of voting in the state of Texas and probably most places. Most normal people with a real life, a job, a kids, a relationship, stuff to do, they understandably have written off politics because it's not about you or for you. So you go on about your life, correct? And so what ends up happening in this state and many others, there are some people that care and good for them, but by and large it becomes about the audience that's available, and that is angry, white, rural, old. So here's a message. If you would like to sort of change and make the political process more inviting and seemingly wanting people that aren't angry, old, white, rural, if you wanted more people to get involved, talk about legalization. I think you got a much better chance. I think if you go out there and tell the taxpayers, start to finish, what a better idea this is for people to open up businesses, sell a legal product, tax the legal product, and have a real marketplace, and the taxpayer will benefit. I think you might find people other than old, angry, and rural show up to vote. You know what, Democrats? You ought to try it. What Beto O'Rourke should have done, every sentence, every stop, every conversation should start with legalization. Oh, but Jeff, there's other stuff. Do you want to win? Would you like to win? Would you like to stop losing? Well, it seems to me the message all around the country in modern United States, not like Texas, and the rest of the country, people with lives, people have stuff to do. The last thing they want to hear from is another politician starting a culture war. You know what their attitude is? Get out of here, man. I got stuff to do. I don't need to hear this anymore. But you know what apparently they do pay attention to? Legalization. It seems to work. It seems to work for the taxpayers. And if your job is to, and you want to win office, it seems to be a pretty good plan to win an office. Other people did it. Take a look yesterday. Take a look at the results. Take a look. It was an ass kicking for Republicans. Mostly, not exclusively, but mostly on this issue. Again, I don't understand how people who want to be a professional politician, which I find disgusting by definition, but people that want to be a professional politician, Beto O'Rourke, I don't know what he hasn't run for. You know what, bud? If you ever want to win, you got to talk about this all the time. All the time. You want to get new people in the door? You want to get somebody to show up to vote other than your grandmother? I would suggest you talk about this. Do I personally care that much about this? No. One of the things I don't understand about the issue of legalization is how in the world any of you could care that much. I found one thing is in total control for all of us. What we eat, drink, and chew. Done. Total control. So why not do something good for the taxpayers? Why not have a good marketing strategy? Like talk about stuff people really care about. It's amazing. This whole thing has been, how this has not been a bigger issue and not been sold as a bigger issue in the state of Texas is political malpractice almost. No wonder you keep losing. You lose because you don't talk about stuff that works. So I'm on the over 5 years. Notice how I've not advocated one way or another. I don't care. And I don't know how any of you care. In fact, I'm almost positive you don't care about gummies. Or you may care to want them. I don't blame you for that. But to care enough to trot out draconian policies run by draconian politicians, I don't know who cares enough about that. And obviously, when you sell the idea of legalization, guess what happens? People show up and vote. People show up and vote, and they're in favor. And I suspect most of them that do are really saying, it's just a good idea. Something different. Just a good idea for the taxpayers. So if you're bored at all, you can sort of read the data from this past, from Election Day. It was pretty substantial. Again, if you disagree with me on the over-under on 5 years for the state of Texas, go ahead. Let me hear your argument. I think you're going to be wrong. And the reason why, there's two reasons why. Why is it still against the law? I mean, why is it not legalized recreationally in the state of Texas? I'm going to assume a couple things, and I'm going to be extra cynical. I assume it's for small-town law enforcement. I assume it has something rural related that they still want to write some tickets and shake people down. I assume. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just going to make that assumption. Number two, I don't want to go too black helicopter, but I assume at some level pharmaceutical companies would prefer not. Right? But I tell you this as a general rule, more options for consumers is always better. More is better for consumers. More choice is always better for consumers. So whatever the ailment or whatever something pharmaceutical company wants to fix, of course, I would like a monopoly too. I would like to own that space and that business. I'd like to keep out as many competitors as I can. So I assume, not pretending to know for sure, but I assume part of the reason why it's not, we don't have legalization here is partly because those industries want to keep that monopoly. I assume that's the case. And then the third part of it, why is it not, is because Democrats suck at messaging. You just suck at messaging. You're horrible communicators and bad strategists too. You know what you should, if you want to be in politics, you should take away from yesterday? Learning how to say legalize weed. Introduce yourself to the crowd, then talk about legalization. You want that line at those obscure elementary schools of people waiting to vote to change from your grandmother? You better talk about this.